Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وبعد. So Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us where we are looking at the 10th going into the 11th of Sha'ban, 1445, Tuesday going into Wednesday. This time, inshallah, we're approaching the middle of the month of Sha'ban. So as I'd mentioned in a Friday class before, I want to mention in this majlis today, inshallah, to prepare ourselves for Ramadan. And that preparation may be through extra fasts, Mondays and Thursdays. That preparation might be through getting the house ready by cleaning it, buying the right dates and everything else to get yourself prepared so you don't have to do too much extra exertion in Ramadan other than the worship and the things you know you have to. So you want to get all of the preliminary things out of the way first, and then all you have left for Ramadan is the ibadah that's due, the other obligations, and those other affairs. There's a narrative that Imam Rajab rahimahullah gives in which he mentions that the early generations, when Sha'ban would come, they would read the Qur'an even more than they regularly did. So they regularly did khatams and other things, but this time they did even more. So in the run-up to Ramadan, to what we're going to engage in, the ibadah that we're going to do, to get even more ready so you can do more, inshallah. I'm going to be looking at what we've got from the kitab, inshallah. We're going to be looking to finish that today. And I want to go from units 20 to 22 and complete the kitab and then discuss the 15th of Sha'ban, which the Imam in its pages in the unit, one of his regular amals, his regular practices was to engage in extra ibadah on the 15th of Sha'ban. So we start with unit 20. Abu Umar's death, janazah procession, attendees, and the procession to the graveyard. I heard Abdullah Asiya, daughter of Muhammad ibn Khalaf, saying, the day which my Sayyid died in, he had just cleaned himself. He was facing the Qibla and he said, recite Surah Yasin. He used to say, indeed Allah has chosen for you the religion, so do not die except while you are Muslims. Allah will establish you on the book and the Sunnah. Now from this we learn, this extract we see, recite Surah Yasin on the dead. فَقْرَأُوا Surah Yasin عَلَى الْمَوْتَى. Recite Surah Yasin on your dead. What's significant about this hadith collected by Imam Ahmad in his Musnad is there is a difference of opinion among scholars about whether it is praiseworthy to recite it on the deceased or whether the point of the hadith is to recite it on those in the run-up to dying. It's not an argument of halal and haram, it's an argument over which is best. So some scholars will say this hadith is talking about reciting it upon the deceased. So you'll see some people when they visit the maqbara, the graveyard, they will recite Surah Yasin. But you'll see some people that will refrain and recite Fatiha or other things instead because they'll say, no, this hadith is talking about the people that are close to being deceased. Because motat can mean deceased or those who are on the way. With respect to his statement, indeed Allah has chosen for you his religion, so do not die except while you're Muslims. The Imam has truncated an ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. وَلَا تَمُوتُونَ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. And do not die except while you are Muslims. He's sort of truncated an ayah as a reminder to all the believers that they stay established on the book and the Sunnah. I heard Abu Muhammad Abdul Rahman ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Jabbar saying, at the time of the death of the Sheikh Abu Umar, I saw a dream. This was either at the time it was happening or right after. It looked like we were going to It looked like we were going to visit him while he was ill. So we entered into his presence, and there was a man asking permission to enter in through the door. I went to open the door, and when I did, I saw that there was a man who was nobler looking than anyone I'd ever seen before. The man standing at the door was wearing clothes of beauty whose descriptions I could not describe. He said, "Please grant permission for me to enter and see the Sheikh." I asked him, "And who are you?" He responded, "I am the angel of death, Malik al-Maut." At that point, I was overtaken with fear of him. Some of the gathering said, "Who is this?" The Sheikh said, "It is the angel of death, let him enter." So the angel of death came in, and he was carrying a towel as if it was made of light on account of its beauty. He took the towel, and with it he touched the mouth of the Sheikh, because the mouth is the place where the soul exits from. So if you've ever seen the deceased, you've witnessed the deceased, you've been in an environment where you watch someone die, it looks as if they almost kind of throw up and then their eyes drift off in a location. The ruh is coming from the mouth. That's why they give that look as if they kind of dry heave and then they're still. That is the end of that person's life. I heard my family saying, the water that came out from his being washed of lote leaf, and the like, the people have taken for their clothes and the like as blessings. So the Sheikh, when he died, the Sheikh Abu Umar al-Muqdisi died, people did tabarruk with the water that had been used for washing him. And this is just an important fiqh point here. When you take tahur water and you wash it over someone that has no najas or anything on him, that water becomes tahir. Meaning you can't make wudu or ghusl from that water, but you can have it for other uses. So people did tabarruk with the water from the Sheikh, and as being a wali of Allah, they saw blessings with this water. We've discussed tabarruk before. I heard Abu Muhammad Mas'ud ibn Abi Bakr saying, the day that the Sheikh Abu Umar died, the people went out for his funeral procession, and it was a hot day. Allah, glorified be He, sent a cloud that provided shade for the people, and I could hear the voice of my parents from the sky more than I could what was being said in the land that day. I heard more than one of my companions saying that day, we heard a whirring sound like that of bees coming from the sky on the day of the funeral procession. I heard the Imam Abu Ishaq Ibrahim ibn Muhammad ibn al-Azhar say on more than one occasion on the lands of the non-Arabs. Those present at the funeral procession of the Sheikh Abu Umar were throngs of people numbering some 20,000 or more. I heard Mas'ud ibn Abi Bakr al-Maqdisi describing the place where the people had gathered for the janazah procession, and he showed me the exact spot. He then said, this whole place was filled with people. I asked, just how many people are we talking about? Al-Maqdisi said, I have no idea, but what I can say is that I've never seen that large of a number for a janazah procession before, like the day I saw the procession of the Sheikh Abu Umar. The place which Mas'ud showed me could accommodate more than 20,000 people, and Ibrahim said that he had counted about that amount. I heard Abu Muhammad Ishaq ibn Khidr ibn Kamil saying, Ibn Muhadib and his servants, Al-Mu'tamid and his servants Abdan, servant of Usama, and his servants all forbade the people from the funeral procession of the Sheikh Abu Umar. This was on account of the crowding of all the people around the area. So the janazah was that heavy with that many people. Some people said, don't go. Not because there's no good in the janazah, but they're worried about people being trampled, being crushed to death, because it was so crowded. They were worried that something might happen. If you want to look at an example of a janazah of comparable size, you look at the janazah of the late Imam Muhammad Sa'id al-Bulti. His janazah was so huge that they had to bring in extra cars to make sure that they could bring the people in and out that needed to come in and out, because all types of people came. The patriarch of the Greek Orthodox Church came. The patriarch of the Latin Rite Church came. The chief rabbi over Syria and Iraq, he came. No one asked him to come, they came. So all these people came to show respect to this man. Another burial similar to this is the late Imam and Wali Ahmed al-Shami. There's video footage of his janazah, and the numbers are so huge, they had to ask people, please don't bring any more cars. Because the amount of people there are, we don't have room for the amount of people. We just don't have room for cars. Please don't bring any more cars. It was huge. And his janazah happened 1414, so that's 1995. That was an immense janazah. So when you see people say sometimes to other people, don't go, it's not because they don't want you to get barakah. It's not because they don't want you to get blessings. They're concerned for your safety. They don't want you to get trampled. They don't want you to get ran over or anything like that. The Sheikh Diyad al-Muqtasi, the author, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, I heard Abu Muhammad Wathab ibn Rafi' ibn Wathab al-Sulami saying, the night that the Sheikh Abu Umar died, I had woken up in the night, made wudu, made salah, and then slept. I saw a great light illuminating the place around me, and I saw a man. I asked the man, what is all of this? The man said, it is the beginning. And this is for whoever followed the janazah procession of the Sheikh Abu Umar. When it was the second night, I saw the same light and two men instead of one. The two men said, so you marvel at the light which you clearly saw? If you had seen the angels descend from the sky, you would have certainly been even more astonished. I heard the Sheikh Abdullah ibn Shaddad ibn Ali al-Zur'i saying, I saw a dream before the death of the Sheikh Abu Umar, as if he had already died, and we had carried his body to the janazah procession to the grave. We brought him forth to lower him into the grave. I said, there is no one in the grave. I looked and said, wait, he was taken up. He was taken up in a great banner. Then his remains were sent down from the sky and went next to his grave for the burial. So this lesson being given is that the Sheikh's rank is such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him additional blessings in which people are seeing these blessings in dreams. They're seeing visions of him. They're seeing these other signs and wonders, because when one of the great men of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dies, one of these great representatives, it is something that's remembered throughout the creation. I heard the Imam, the Hafid, Abdul Fath Muhammad, the son of Al-Hafid Abdul Ghani, saying, there was a man that looked and saw a vision a few days before the death of the Sheikh Abu Umar. It seemed what looked like the vision of a mountain tumbled down or being moved from its place. One of the interpreters of the dreams and visions explained that this was making reference to the death of the Sheikh Abu Umar. So, making reference to the Sheikh Abu Umar as like a mountain tumbling down, why? Because if you look at biographies of the past, many scholars are often called mountains because it's a reference to knowledge. So-and-so is sometimes called Al-Jabal, the mountain. Ibn al-Jabal, the son of the mountains. Like, why are they called mountains? Because they're not made out of igneous rock. They're not made out of limestone. They're not made out of obsidian or quartz or sandstone or limestone. Why are they calling them mountains? Well, it's because in every language you have metaphors that are used, right? When you say that, like, for example, it happened to a Muslim brother I knew. He was from Libya. And another Muslim, whose background is English, referred to Mu'ammar al-Qaddafi as a chicken. And the Arab brother from Libya said, no, he's man. He's not chicken. He's man. It's like, no. So we had to explain, because there's a disconnection, because necessarily chicken in English implies cowardice, weakness, fecklessness. So we had to explain, no, he means he's a coward. So why don't you just say that? It's like, well, for the same reason that when you call someone in Arabic, we had to explain, for the same reason that in Arabic, when we refer to someone as being an ocean, we don't mean that if you step near him, you'll drown, or that you could suffer poisoning of your kidneys. No, we mean that his depth, his grandeur, his strength is such. So things don't always translate, but a mountain, with reference to a scholar or righteous person, means the mountain of what they represent. And what do mountains do? Part of what mountains do is they're not only anchored, but they also hold soil in place. And by holding soil in place, whenever you debase a mountain or you remove one, the soil becomes loosened. and it makes it possible for mudslides, all these other things. So if you ever want to understand the impact of a mountain being lost or a portion of it being lost, look at a volcanic eruption. And when you see the mountain, the side of it being lost or a portion of it being lost, you see a mudslide happens, trees are destroyed, miles of area is devastated around it because this mountain was lost. If you see a mountain spew lava, what happens to the people? All these things, when you look at a mountain, you imagine these big imams. Umar radiallahu anhu, the companion of Umar, is not referred to as a mountain but a door. And it was said that Umar represents a door, and if that door is knocked down, kufr will become manifest. Or you have Ayman, when she saw Umar die, she said, now all the other things will get weakened now that the strength of Islam has been taken. Everything else gets weakened. So looking at people as mountains or doors or pillars, Imam Abu Hanifah radiallahu anhu is sometimes called al-watid, the peg, because when he was stable, he kept things stable when he was alive, the peg. So all these things are used to draw your attention to the importance of people. And certain people, you may have heard it in your family, or you've heard it said in other families. Such and such was the pillar of the family. When he or she died, the whole family fell into disarray. Like a lot of fighting, things that they prevented now became widespread. Because that person was the one that was keeping things under control, holding things together. And when they win, everything else wins. Same thing with imams of certain caliber. We reach unit 21, Imam Abu Umar being alive in his grave, the punishment being lifted from him after his death. I heard the Imam, Abu Abdullah, Muhammad ibn Tarkhan ibn Abu al-Hasan al-Dimashqi, and Abu Muhammad Mas'ud ibn Abi Bakr al-Maqdisi mention that Abdul Wali ibn Muhammad ibn Tarkhan said to them, I was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah at the grave of the Sheikh Abu Umar, and I was alone. I reached the portion, Baqaratun la faridun wa la bikr, a cow tilling the earth and not new to the land. Surah Al-Baqarah, the second surah, 17. I made a mistake in my recitation, but the Sheikh Abu Umar corrected me from the grave. This made me afraid. I tumbled over backwards and then stood up and left. This is the narration given to me from his father Mas'ud, who then said, I called out to the Sheikh and he answered me to calm me. This is a well-known incident. So this shows that those who have died live on in the graves. We know this from the Rasulullah saying, إِنَّ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ أَحْيَاءٌ فِي قُبُورِهِمْ يُصَلُّونَ. Indeed, the prophets are alive in their graves making salah. Got it? But why these people? Well, because they're the righteous people that follow the prophets. And we have another hadith in Tirmidhi, where the Prophet ﷺ said, any one of you that visits the deceased, when he gives salam and speaks to the deceased answers back and responds. It's just that you do not hear it. So don't underestimate when you go to visit the deceased loved ones. Don't underestimate that, well, I go to see them, but are they really hearing me? Are they not hearing? Don't underestimate that. They hear you. Because the Rasulullah said they hear you from the time they hear your footsteps come, footsteps go, and your conversations. So they benefit from that. That's why I mentioned a few times before how beneficial it is to visit the deceased or to visit the righteous, even if you're not directly related to them, to visit the righteous. And if you can't get to them, to convey salam or blessings to them, because someone should convey some blessings to them. Muhammad bin Tarkhan said, Abdul Wali remained after that incident a number of days, and then he just died. So he witnessed hearing the Sheikh Abu Umar al-Maqdisi answer him, and then after that, then he died. I heard the Sheikh Muhammad ibn Hussein al-Iraqi, servant of Sheikh Ali al-Qurshi, say, I went along with the Sheikh Ali al-Qurshi to the grave of the Sheikh Abu Umar. The Sheikh Ali al-Qurshi said to me, the man in the tomb is truly alive in his grave. I heard Ali ibn Mala'ib ibn Harraz al-Iraqi, the Mu'adhin, say, I was at the grave of the Sheikh Abu Umar, and I recited Surah Al-Kahf until the end of it. When I completed that part, I heard the Sheikh say from the grave, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah. I heard Abu Muhammad Ishaq ibn Khidr ibn Kamil say that the people of his household, particularly his wife, by the name of Azra bint Ahmed ibn Yunus, that she saw a woman in a dream that had just died. She said, the woman was dead. Perhaps she had died in the Salah. So I asked her about her state. I asked, how are you? She said, I have been burdened with steel. I then saw her after the death of the Sheikh Abu Umar, and I asked her about her state at that point. She said, the punishment has been raised from us like this earth has been raised up. And the punishment has been raised from us like the sky above us. And this is on account of this man. I said, who is this man? The woman said, he is the Sheikh Abu Umar. So when you make dua for the righteous people, the deceased people of the past, this is proof that they receive it. They get the blessings. And this woman had died in her salah. Why is that a big deal? Dying in the salah. This isn't the only one that's ever died in the salah. We have examples of other people, such as Fatima Zahra, alayhi salam. She died in her salah. We have Al-Imam Abu Hanifah, radiallahu anhu, after he knew that he was poisoned, he made his salah and he died in his salah. We have the Imam Abdullah Sufyan al-Qadumi rahimahullah. He died in the salah in the tashahhud. His finger was still raised in the tashahhud. We have a recent Imam, or recent Sheikh Abdul Hamid Kishk, the great Egyptian scholar. He died in the last Salat al-Tarawih and the last rak'ah and the last salah of that month in the sujood. He was a blind man. Very great scholar. So understand that to die in the salah, there's tremendous blessings in that. Because it means that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took you back to Him was in one of your best states. Because think about this for the salah. The salah is the act of worship that combines all of the other acts. You have qiyam, you have standing, you have bowing, you have recitation of the Qur'an, you have dhikr, you have sujood, you have sitting, you have dhikr in the sujood, seeking forgiveness from Allah, different types of du'as at the end. All of that is not combined. All of those things that you see are in one solitary act. Whereas normally by yourself, dua, you might raise your hands and make dua. You might lay down and make dua. You might recite Qur'an. But all of those things are in the salah. And that's why when the Rasulullah was asked, Ma afdalul iman, what is the best of iman? And he said, after mentioning the best of iman is iman, and then he said, as-salatu li waqtiha, the salah at the first of its time. Because it's always the power, because it combines so many other things. The salah is seen as as-salatu tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar, that the salah forbids from perversions and evil. We have a hadith in Imam Suyuti's collection where the Rasulullah mentioned the salah, and the Messenger of Allah was then approached by a companion and said, yes, but such and such, he does all types of sins. He says, yes, but he makes salah. He says he'll leave it. And after a period of time, he left it. Because the salah takes away, the 5 times salah, it pushes against those sins. It will give you the ability against them. If you stay consistent and focused on that, victory will come. Whenever there are cracks, then that is where things get in. So sometimes if you find yourself burdened with a lot of different tribulations and sins, you should say, I wonder if my salah is as it should be. I wonder if maybe I left some things off. Maybe I did this, maybe I did that. Like, look into it, because when you perfect your salah, other things also get ironed out. And this is a lesson we should take away. We have the last portion of the kitab, the last unit, 22, dreams that were seen of the Imam. I heard the Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr al-Sha'iri saying, Ad-Daraji narrated to me, whose name is Abdul Rahim ibn Ibrahim ibn Yahya, the Imam of the Hanafis of his area, saying, one night I saw a dream, like there was some gate opening in the sky. Then I heard a voice call out, this one is from the people of paradise. I looked and saw that the one being made reference to was the Sheikh Abu Umar. It was narrated to me by Abu Muhammad Ishaq ibn Khidr, who said, I was on the way to Al-Madinah on Friday, and I was met by Ibn al-Daraji, who is Abdul Rahim, and he said, what kept you from making salah behind the Sheikh Abu Umar? And you say that you will make salah in Al-Madinah. So, for 3 days after that, I saw a dream in which the Prophet ﷺ said or indicated, you should continue making salah behind the Sheikh Abu Umar. Indeed, he is one of the people of the paradise. I heard the noble Imam, Muwafiquddin Abu Muhammad Abdullah, narrate from a man from the people of Homs the following. There was a man from Homs who had a pious sister that had died, and he saw her in a dream after her death. He said to her, how are you? She said, we are from the companions of the Sheikh Abu Umar, and we are in the paradise. So I said to her, now where is the wealth for the deposit which you had previously had? She said, it is located in such and such a place. When I woke up, I went looking for it and found it in the exact spot that she had mentioned. So this establishes the veracity of what was narrated in the dream. The reason why that's important is someone could say, well, he saw a dream. He thinks it was his sister, but maybe not. But the fact that he said the deposit of wealth that you had, where is it? Where did you leave it? That's something only she would know where it was, because it was in her mind. And the only one that has access to the minds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it has to be that was her. Because when he woke up, he went looking for it, found it. So this is proof on the veracity of dreams. And there is nothing wrong if it in a dream, because this was kind of like he tested to see that this was authentic. There's nothing wrong in that. Because if someone comes in a dream and they say, I'm so-and-so, or they resemble something, and they tell you something, you say, well, wait a minute, let me test this to be sure that this is really something authentic. There's no harm in that, because you're making sure and safeguarding yourself from possible evil that could come. Because it is only the Rasul ﷺ who we can say the shaitan cannot imitate his form, because of the hadith in the Sahih of Muslim. But others is possible. For others, other things could happen. I would like to say that there were many people that saw the Sheikh in a multiplicity of dreams. At the time of his death, I was in the city of Isfahan, and may Allah have mercy upon him. This short biography was completed at the hand of the collector of his pages, the Hafid, Diyauddin al-Maqdisi. May Allah, exalted be He, have mercy upon him. Allah, make it so, indeed make it so. Ameen. This was handed down through the scribes on the 15th of Dhul-Qa'dah in the year 871. And Allah give all the scribes the best outcome for doing so. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا ورسولنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم أجمعين يا حميد الرحيمين. اللهم تقبل منا هذا الختم الكتاب المبارك وارحم واغفر للمؤلف والذين قرأوا من هذا الكتاب والذين كتبوا من هذا الكتاب والذين ذكروا في هذا الكتاب. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless Diyauddin al-Maqdisi, the author of this kitab, the subject, Abu Umar al-Maqdisi, all of those mentioned, those who read this book, those who wrote from this book, and those who took from this book. Okay. I would like to now talk about Appendix F, which is the 15th of Sha'ban. I want to discuss this in our hopes that inshallah we can take some barakah and blessings away from this noble time, because we have some 4 days before we're going to be coming to the 15th of Sha'ban. This appendix begins on page 161. The portion that I've chosen is from Imam Ibn Rajab Al-Hanbali, rahimahullah, who died 795. I want to mention a few things about Ibn Rajab before continuing. Imam Ibn Rajab is from 795 Hijri, he dies. He is from the era of the scholars who gathered between the way of Iraq and the way of Sham. Iraq is invaded in the year 656 of the Hijri, which is AD 1258. Hulaku Khan arrives with the Tatar, and they kill 2 million people in a few weeks. They throw the books in the river, they kill the Muslims in big numbers. The Euphrates runs black with ink, and the Tigris runs red with blood. They say that the blood ran knee-high to the horses, and the amount of devastation was the like of which they had not seen. It is mentioned in many historical accounts. It is mentioned by Ibn Kathir. It is mentioned by Abu Sham al-Maqdisi, who is an eyewitness account, and many others. After this time, much of the knowledge was transferred to Sham, which is Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine. Israel today is concluded within that whole chunk. And so Imam Ibn Rajab had also studied in Iraq, and he studied in Sham. He is among the last of the people that had known and had memorized 700,000 hadith, which is most of the 1 million. You get in his time, and it's extremely rare. The knowledge begins to weaken. So when Imam Ibn Rajab decides, because of illness and other obligations, to step down from his post as Marja, it takes 2 people to replace him. So now you're finding it takes 3 and 4 people to replace one man, whereas before it would be 1 to replace 1. Now it's 3 and 4, 2 and 3. So to replace Ibn Rajab Hanbali, it takes 2 imams who were massive imams in their own right. Ibn al-Liham, who dies 803 Hijri, and Shamsuddin ibn Muflih, who dies 762 Hijri. These 2 giants, it took them to replace him. They narrate in historical documents that they would receive bags of letters asking for answers to questions and answers to rules. Bags, sacks. This is the era that they came from. From all over the Muslim world, sacks of letters asking, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? How do you answer this? So Ibn Rajab is that last generation of the great collectors and memorizers of hadith, the graders and explainers. He writes a book called Fath al-Bari, which is a sharh on the Sahih of Bukhari. He's unable to finish it. He only reaches to the book of Janazah. Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who dies 852, who's that final generation of great memorizers, he finishes the work. So he finishes Fath al-Bari. He goes from the last of the book of Janazah all the way to the end of the book Kitab al-Tawheed. So he took up the task, and it took a great imam like him. So it took a Shami to begin this big undertaking and a Palestinian to finish it. So this is the grandeur of these imams. So he writes on the topic of 15th of Sha'ban. He gives its ruling. He says, Imams Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, Ibn Hibban in his Sahih, Al-Hakim in his Mustadrak, all narrated from the hadith of Al-Ala ibn Abdul Rahman from his father, from Abu Hurairah, from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said, when the month of Sha'ban reaches midway, do not fast until the month of Ramadan. Imam al-Tirmidhi and others narrated this matter. The scholars differ regarding the authenticity of this hadith, and then also acting on it. So there's an ikhtilaf about, okay, is this hadith unimpeachably authentic? But then number 2, if it's authentic, do we act on this hadith? Because there are certain hadith that we don't act on because there are other hadith that are dominant over those. So can we act on this hadith of not fasting in the month of Sha'ban until Ramadan? And what's the application of this with all the other hadith? As for the authenticity of the hadith, it has been declared to be authentic by Imams at-Tirmidhi, Ibn Hibban, Al-Hakim, At-Tahawi, and Ibn Abd al-Barr. Now, At-Tahawi is Abu Ja'far Ahmad At-Tahawi, the big Imam. In some reports, it's mentioned he dies 329 Hijri. He is the nephew of Abu Ibrahim al-Muzni, rahimahullah, one of the top students of Imam Shafi'i. And in the beginning of his affair is Shafi'i. But because of an interaction with his uncle, it discourages him a little bit from knowledge, because his uncle, Abu Ibrahim al-Muzni, had a very strong desire for people to do knowledge, and he was hard on his students. And a lot of my teachers were hard on us. But some people, it can discourage them. So one day, Imam Tahawi was discouraged by that. And he was walking along his way, and he ran across some other students. And they spoke with him, and they said, you seem like a brilliant man from what we take from you. Who are you studying with? He said, well, my uncle right now. Well, you should come and study with us. And these were big Hanafi scholars who said, come study with us. So he said, okay, wonderful. So he goes, he studies with them, and says, this is what I'm going to do, because they encouraged him. This is why we have to remember about students of knowledge, not to discourage them. So they encouraged him. And Imam Abu Ja'far Al-Tahawi became this towering figure. He's from an area called Taha in South Egypt, about 10 villages above Aswan. He writes in a huge area of fiqh, hadith, and other books. The other Imam, Ibn Abdul Barr, he dies 463. There were two big memorizers of hadith in this time. Ibn Abdul Barr, who was in Andalus, who is called the Hafiz of the West, and Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, who dies 463 in Baghdad, he's called the Hafiz of the East. They both died within 3 months of each other. Same year, 3 months of each other. So, this hadith is declared authentic by Imams al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Hibban, al-Hakim, al-Tahawi, and Ibn Abdul Barr. However, there's been discussion about this hadith by those greater and more knowledgeable than those previously mentioned. So he says, listen, there's some people who say there's an issue with the authenticity of this hadith, and they're greater than those I've just mentioned. They state this is a hadith that is rejected. Those sharing this opinion include Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Zur'a al-Razi, and Abu Bakr al-Athram. So these are third and fourth age people just ahead of them. So they think, okay, well, they could be the greater ones. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal says of this hadith, Al-Ala did not narrate any hadith worse than this one. The Imam then went on to reject the hadith and answered with another hadith. Do not precede Ramadan with a fast by a day or 2 days. So now he clarifies the position. This hadith, when the month of Sha'ban reaches midway, do not fast until the month of Ramadan. No, this hadith is limited by another hadith, which states, do not precede Ramadan with a fast by a day or 2 days. It's limited by that hadith. Why? Because in addition to this hadith, we know that Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to, if she missed any fasts in Ramadan, she would make them up in Sha'ban. So we can't say that this hadith is absolute, that don't make any fasts. No, it's limited by this other hadith. The Imam continues, so the understanding that one can take from the hadith is that it's permissible to precede Ramadan with a fast that is more than 2 days. Abu Bakr al-Athram said of the matter, the ahadith on the topic in total contradict the hadith of Al-Ala. And the other ahadith on the topic indicate that the Prophet ﷺ used to fast all of Sha'ban, then followed up with Ramadan. And now this is how when you look at a topic in hadith or in the Qur'an, one of the things that you want to do is gather all the data on the topic. What sometimes happens in English is slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will see one hadith and then they will just build on that one hadith. But you don't want to do that. What you want to ask is that the only hadith on that topic? Is that all that there is? If it's not, you then want to gather all the ahadith on that topic. Or to ask someone, or to look for the kutub that explain this to get a more holistic understanding. Because if you don't, you could think that that hadith is the end of the line, it's the end of the question. But then you find out that it's wrong, your understanding of it, and then it could lead to all types of problems, especially if you have imparted it to someone else because you've read a portion of something and thought, alhamdulillah, I've got it. So you meet someone and you have an ayah in the Qur'an that says, don't come to the salah while you're drunk. Okay, well, that would mean that outside of the salah, you get drunk if you need to. So then you impart this to someone else and they say, SubhanAllah, wonderful. Just don't be high when you're in the salah. Outside of the salah, be high. But then you find Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th surah, ayah 90, which warns against all intoxicants, which makes you realize, oh, this ayah is before that one. And was warning the people because the prohibition of intoxicants was steady. It wasn't absolute all at once. Shirk was absolute all at once. There's no way to, well, on Tuesdays, sometimes I worship idols, but then I fall back. No, it doesn't happen like that. But for prohibitions of eating and drinking, it's slow. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, some men benefit in it, some men don't. But it's sinful altogether. Okay, that's the first warning. The second warning is, don't come to the salah while you're intoxicated. Then finally, abstain from it altogether. But it was a careful process. The ayat about hijab, there are 4 ayat that make up what the scholars call Kitab al-Hijab, the book of hijab. It was progressive. It's progressive. So when you look at ayat and a hadith, you want to know, is this the only thing on the topic? To gather a more holistic understanding. He did not forbid from preceding Ramadan by 2 days with a fast, but that hadith is indeed divergent and contradicts the other authentic ahadith on the topic. Imam Abu Ja'far Al-Tahawi said of the hadith of Al-Ala, that hadith is abrogated and consensus has been narrated on not acting on that hadith, which is another thing. Understanding some ahadith are abrogated. So some ahadith were in effect, but then the Prophet ﷺ will say, I used to do this, now do this. Like for example, there's a hadith in Abu Dawood where the Rasulullah said, I used to forbid you from visiting the graves. Now visit them. Because one of the reasons for the revelation of Al-Hakam al-Takathur is the Muslims in Mecca would visit and they would see their loved ones, and the loved ones of the unbelievers had massive graves that have been built up and beautified. And the unbelievers said, look at you, you don't even have anything built up. You don't have anyone. You say that you're going to be resurrected and you're coming back from the dead, but look, your grave doesn't even look ornamented. Look at that. So they used that as leverage. So Rasulullah said, don't visit the graves because it bothered people and it troubled them. But they arrive in Al-Madinah, he says what? I used to forbid you from visiting graves. فَزَرُوهَا. Now visit them. Right? So it abrogates the previous command. So Imam Abu Ja'far Al-Tahawi said the hadith is abrogated and consensus has been narrated on not acting on this hadith. Most of the scholars hold the position that the hadith is not to be acted on, while others take hold of the hadith, like Shafi'i and his companions, and forbade from beginning an optional fast after the middle of Sha'ban for the one who does not normally fast due to some of their sunnah fasts. Some of the latter-day scholars of our school also agreed with them in that, but they differed with the reason for the prohibition. Some of them said that it's for the reason that it's feared that someone may increase days in the month of Ramadan that are not from it. However, this position is far from the mark, as after the 15th of Sha'ban is indeed mentioned. It is also far from the mark as the prohibition in the hadith states that someone should not precede Ramadan by a day or 2 days. This shows that we knew that this month was before Ramadan, so there is no confusion. Other scholars of the school said that the prohibition is so the individual might remain strong for the fasting up to the month of Ramadan. So this is a tenderness towards him, so that he does not become weak in Sha'ban from fasting to the point that he cannot fulfill Ramadan. So some scholars say, listen, take the prohibition in that hadith and be careful so that if you overfast, you don't want to do that so that you become so weakened, you can't fulfill Ramadan. It's like, what happened to you? Oh, I fasted Rajab, and I fasted all of Sha'ban, and now I cannot make Ramadan. What happened to you? Well, you became so weak and listless, you can't even fulfill Ramadan. So this hadith should be taken as a tenderness to be careful so you don't become so weak that you cannot fulfill Ramadan. This position has been narrated from Al-Waqi'. Al-Waqi' is Al-Waqi' bin al-Jarrah, one of the 40 qadis of Imam Abu Hanifah. And he understood that the fasting of the Prophet ﷺ in the month of Sha'ban, in which he either fasted all of it or most of it, and then followed it up with Ramadan. All of this is to do with the fast after the 15th of Sha'ban. Now, with regard to the topic of fasting on the 15th of Sha'ban, then this is not completely forbidden, as in general, this is from the recommended white days that one should fast in succession, which are the 13th, 14th, and 15th of every lunar month. And this is praiseworthy. So understand, the 15th of Sha'ban, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith in Al-Bukhari that it is praiseworthy to fast Ayyam al-Bid, the white days. And he said they're the 13th, 14th, and 15th. So someone can't say, you can't fast the 15th of Sha'ban. What are you talking about? If I do the 13th, 14th, the 15th, I can't say, I'm skipping that. I can't. It's part of the white days. Well, you can't fast it all by itself. Why not? Where's the text that says, quote, thou shalt not fast the 15th of Sha'ban by itself, or thou shall be punished? No, there's no text for that. Okay, so then you can't stop it. So now the Imam starts to unpackage what the 15th of Sha'ban is about and what we should take from it. He said, a command was narrated to fast in the month of Sha'ban specifically, and the day was referred to in particular. The hadith appears in the Sunan of Ibn Majah with a weak chain of transmission from Ali from the Prophet ﷺ, who said, when the middle of the month of Sha'ban appears, then stand in the night and fast in the day of this time. Indeed, Allah exalted, it descends to the time of sunset to the lowest sky. He says, is there someone who's seeking forgiveness so I can forgive him? Is there someone who is asking for sustenance so that I might give it to him? Is there someone in tribulation so that I might relieve him? Shall I not do as I have said? Shall I not do as I have said? This time remains until the time of Fajr. Regarding the virtues of the 15th of Sha'ban, there are a number of other ahadith, and the scholars have differed when discussing them. Most scholars consider these ahadith as weak, while Ibn Hibban declared some of them as authentic. Imam Ibn Hibban mentioned in his Sahih the aforementioned hadith and others like it, including the hadith of Aisha, who said, the Prophet ﷺ was absent from his bed one night. I went out looking for him and found that he was at the graveyard of Jannatul Baqiyah. Okay, so she went looking. Where is he? It's the 15th. She found him at the grave Jannatul Baqiyah. His head was raised towards the sky and he said, did you fear that you had been abandoned by Allah and his messenger? I said in reply, I thought that you'd gone to visit one of your wives. He said in reply, indeed, Allah, blessed and exalted, comes down to the lowest sky on the 15th of Sha'ban and forgives more people than there are hairs on the sheep looked after by the dogs of shepherds. So if you look at the amount of wool on a sheep and you think of how many hairs are there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives more people than that. This is in Ibn Majah. This hadith was also collected by the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, At-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, but At-Tirmidhi mentioned from Al-Bukhari that the hadith was weak. Ibn Majah also mentioned a hadith from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari from the Prophet ﷺ who said, indeed, Allah comes to the lowest sky on the 15th of Sha'ban and he forgives all of his creation with the exception of the idol worshipper and the one addicted to intoxicants. The Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal narrated a hadith from Abdullah bin Amr from the Prophet ﷺ who said, indeed, Allah comes down to his creation on the 15th of Sha'ban and forgives his slaves with the exception of two, the one addicted to intoxicants and the one who committed suicide. This same hadith was also given from Ibn Hibban in his Sahih text from Mu'adh, and the hadith is attributable. This same Imam, Ibn Hibban, narrates a hadith from Uthman ibn Abil As that is attributable, where the Prophet ﷺ said, when the 15th of Sha'ban comes, someone calls out, is there someone who is seeking forgiveness so that I might forgive him? Is there someone who is asking so that I might grant his request? I will not turn away anyone from me that asks me, except for the one who commits fornication or adultery with a woman and the idol worshiper. There are other ahadith on the subject, but there is weakness in all of them. It was narrated from Nawf al-Bikali that Ali radiallahu anhu came out on the 15th of Sha'ban, and most of the people came out looking at the sky. Ali then said, the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam came out on this exact same day and looked at the sky. He then said, this is an hour in which Allah called out. Anyone that calls me, I will answer him. Anyone who asks my forgiveness, I will forgive him. This is as long as he is not a numerologist, magician, poet, astrologer, palm reader, policeman, taker of bribes, someone who is a drummer, music player. Allah, Lord of Dawood, forgive the one who calls on you this night and the one who asks your forgiveness on this night. The night of the 15th of Sha'ban was venerated and used for strenuous worship by the followers of the companions from the people of Sham, like Khalid ibn Ma'adan, Makhul, Luqman ibn Amir, and others. There were also a group from among them who extolled the virtues of the night and held it in regard. So understand this, that he quotes the texts before the ahadith. And what Ibn Rajab is saying is that there are a group of ahadith that are weak on this topic. But there are also ahadith that are sahih, which tells us what? That there is something to the 15th of Sha'ban. We can't dismiss it out of hand because there are sahih ahadith and then ahadith that are weak, but not weak to where they're lies. They're just something in the transmission. There's something to this night. But what do you do when you have some sahih ahadith and then some weaker ahadith on the topic? You look at the practice of the companions and others because that will tell you additional information about it. So he mentioned followers of the companions like Khadim Ma'adan, Makhul, Luqman ibn Amir, and others. Why? Because they're students of the companions. So if they're carrying out optional actions on the 15th of Sha'ban, there's definitely something to it. There's definitely something to it. It can't be a lie. Whereas if you said these are hadith are weak and none of the companions, none of their students, and none of their students do it, okay, well now you can say there's probably nothing to it. Because none of them are doing anything at all. But the fact that you're finding their students saying this is a night that should be venerated and respected, there's something to it. Now we're going to look at what there is to it, because we've seen in the ahadith about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgiving everyone except for the idol worshiper and those addicted to intoxicants. So the Imam Rajab says, quote, "It was, however, said that this came from traditions that had an Israelite origin. Once this practice and the knowledge of the practice became widespread in the different lands, the people differed about the 15th of Sha'ban." Now this, when they call something Israelite origin, it means this. When there were Jews that became Muslims, the Jews that became Muslims had a huge amount of knowledge about history, about their own books and other things. But sometimes those Jews that became Muslims, when they would write down their history or other things, they might mix between the knowledge of the deen and the other things, which requires what? Later scholars and historians to have to sift through and correct it. So some of what's attributed to the night of Sha'ban is mixed in with that, but not all of it. So what Ibn Rajab is going to do is sift through it and give us the clarified proof on the matter so that we don't take anything away that shouldn't be taken away. And these aren't things that are done by those Israelites that converted to Islam on purpose. They're things that happen from slips of the pen, tiredness, or thinking that, well, this seems to be connected to this, and then other things happen. Those are things that can happen with any scribe or slip of the pen. An example of this can happen to where, for example, in Arabic, the words tis'a and sab'a, 9 and 7, look similar without the harakat on them. So it's easy that they might get mixed up. So you have to read the context to know, is the word sab'a, is it 7 or is it 9? That can happen. And it's not intended by the person to be deceptive or to get it wrong. It's a slip that can happen because the shape of the word, they look similar. So the Imam, he starts by saying, quote, "There were some people who accepted the night of Sha'ban and others who agreed with them in venerating this night and holding it in special regard. Some of these included a group of worshippers from the people of Al-Basra and those besides. This is important because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there shall be a city at the time that my companions will come to called Al-Basra. This is in Abu Dawud. And Omar built that city. So the fact that the Basran people say, no, there's something to it. Now someone could say, well, why does that matter? Okay, Omar built it. And then Rasulullah mentioned about the building of the city. That shouldn't make Al-Basra really special. Well, it might not in just the mentioning of Al-Basra, but who's in Al-Basra. Utbah ibn Ghazwan taught there. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari taught there. Anas ibn Malik taught there. Abdullah ibn Umar taught there. Aisha taught there. Al-Hasan, Al-Hussein. Now you're starting to see Al-Hasan al-Basri, one of Ali's top students, he was there. Muhammad ibn Sirin, Hafs ibn Sirin. So the fact that they say there is some benefit in it, we can't deny it now. This veneration was repudiated by most of the scholars of Al-Hijaz, such as Ata ibn Abi Mulaika. Abdurrahman ibn Zayd ibn Aslam also narrated this position from the scholars of fiqh as authorities of the people of Al-Madinah. So the people of Al-Madinah said, we don't do veneration on this night, which is the position of the companions of Imam Malik and others. And they said that all the things done in veneration of this night are an innovation. The scholars of Sham differed in how to go about venerating the night of Sha'ban and how to show it respect. There were two positions that they adopted on the matter. Now, by innovation, they don't mean blameworthy innovation. They mean it's permitted, but it's better if it's left. So the scholars of Sham, they differed. How do we venerate this night if we want to show respect on the 15th of Sha'ban? How do we do so? The first is, this group held that it's praiseworthy to venerate the night by gathering in congregation together in the masjids, like what slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do in this city. That's the first position. We'll gather together, we'll worship, we'll do some things. Why? Because any optional act of worship, to gather together and do it in jama'ah is permitted when there's no prohibition against it. So let's say we look at a salah like salat al-tasbih. There's ikhtilaf about whether it's a sunnah or not or what have you, but There's no argument of its permissibility to be done. So let's say we come together in this masjid and we say, we're going to pray Salat al-Tasbih in Jama'ah. So we do. Those that differ might say, because there will be those who will differ, will say, wait a minute, why are you praying Salat al-Tasbih in Jama'ah? It's not been mentioned that the Rasulullah or the companions prayed in Jama'ah. And that is true. But for all optional actions, when there's no prohibition, we can't stop it. Okay, well, we're going to pray can we pray Salat al-Tawbah in Jama'ah? Well, yeah, you could. But some will say, well, no, you shouldn't. Not because it's haram, but there's no proof for doing it in Jama'ah, you wouldn't do it. But the other side would say, but we can though, because is there a prohibition from doing it? Well, no, well then we can do it. So all Salah in Jama'ah, they can be done. Now there are certain that have been emphasized in Jama'ah, but if they haven't been told that you can't do them, what can stop you from praying? Right, so for this, one group says it's praiseworthy to venerate the night by gathering a congregation together in the masjid. This is the first position. Khalid ibn Ma'adan and Luqman ibn Amr and others used to wear their best clothes on that day, burn incense, wear kuhul, and in the night make extra prayers in the masjid. Those who agreed with them in this were Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. Ishaq ibn Rahawayh is contemporary to Imam Ahmed, so he's in the third age. Those who agreed with them in this were Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, who when discussing the actions in this night, like a group of people standing in optional congregational prayers, he said, this is not an innovation at all. This was now also narrated from Harb al-Kirmani in his book Al-Masail. Harb al-Kirmani is one of the students of Imam Ahmed. Number two, a group of scholars that hold that all the practices mentioned above are done in the masjid on this night, namely congregational prayers, storytelling, supplication, are disliked. But it is not disliked for the man to pray by himself individually. So this is the second position. Someone will say, well, listen, it's okay to do these actions, but they should be done individually. Why? Because that's what's transmitted. It's individually to be done. But the first party says, well, if it's transmitted individually, is there anything to stop it doing it in a group? Well, no. So why would we stop? Why would we not do it in a group? Especially at a masjid where it is a place to gather together. The malaika come, we gather together, you get additional blessings, you get additional goodness, you get additional, all these other things. What would stop you from doing it? This issue, this difference of opinion belongs to a similar difference of opinion as making dua in jama'ah after the Fard Salah. Same discussion. Those that say it's better if it's not done. Why? Because it's not been transmitted doing salah, doing dua in jama'ah after the Fard Salah. Those, though, who say that no, it's okay to do it because although the Rasulullah commands he didn't do it, is dua recommended? Yes. Is it recommended at all types of times? Yes. Is there a restriction on it being done after the Fard Salah? Well, no. Okay, so what would stop you from doing it in jama'ah? Or those who say the optional salahs after the Jum'ah, they should be done at home and not done in the masjid. Why? Because they say the ahadith, they indicate that they're done at home, they're not done in the masjid. But those who follow the position say, well, wait a minute. The Rasulullah, were there companions that came to the masjid and prayed optional prayers in the masjid? Well, yes. So what would stop us from praying those? Nothing. Right? So this difference of opinion that has to do with things that have not explicitly been mentioned as being done in jama'ah and whether or not they should be done in jama'ah. And either position is valid. It has to do with what position you're following, what evidences you examine, what you look at, and what you consider. So the Imam is trying to lay out something. So no one who holds the first position should condemn those who follow the second position. So if you say on the 15th of Sha'ban, I'm just going to be at home, it's going to be quiet, myself and my family, that's okay. But if someone from that family says, I'm headed to the masjid to do, that person should not be condemned. That person should not be, what are you doing, you devil? Why are you going there? Well, I'm going to pray in Jama'ah, everything else. Na'udhu billah. No, that shouldn't be the case. That person should, okay, well, he's going. And if the person's praying by himself, look at you fasiqs, why are you by yourself? You're supposed to be in Jama'ah. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Islam is in Jama'ah. No, because those actions are things that are permitted to differ in. So he goes on to say, a group of scholars hold that all the practices mentioned above, that are done in the messages on this night, namely the congregational prayer, storytelling, supplication, are disliked, but it is not disliked for the man to pray by himself individually on this night. This is the statement of Imam al-Awza'i, the Imam of the people of Sham, the scholars of fiqh and teacher. Imam al-Awza'i is contemporary to Imam Abu Hanifah, radiallahu anhu. Big figure, from Beirut in today's Lebanon. This is, now, Imam al-Rajab, listen to what he says. He said, this is actually the nearest position to the truth if Allah the Exalted so wills. So he lets you know what his position is. His position is that you should pray it individually by yourself. So that's why he said, this is actually the nearest position to the truth of Allah. Okay, we now know Ibn Rajab's position is you should pray them individually. Because he says, that's the closest to the truth. Okay, we'll let that be. It has been narrated from Umar Abdul Aziz that he wrote to his worker in Al-Basra, you need to keep vigil on 4 nights of the year in which Allah completes and perfects in them His mercy on the first, in His mercy. On the first night of Rajab, the night of the 15th of Sha'ban, the night of Eid al-Fitr, and the night of Eid al-Adha. So these 4 nights you should keep vigil. First of Rajab, 15th of Sha'ban, the night of Eid al-Fitr, and the night of Eid al-Adha. Right? Get extra barakah. Stay up. Even if all you can give is 2 rakahs, because fasting all of Ramadan, you might be exhausted. But even if you say, oh Allah, I can only give you 2 rakahs. Alhamdulillah. Give 2 rakahs and give dua. Because the fact that you made it through Ramadan and then you got to Eid al-Fitr, subhanAllah. How many people don't make it to Ramadan? How many people go back to Allah on the first night of Ramadan? How many people get to the midway of Ramadan and get called back to Allah? How many get to the last 10 nights and they go back to Allah? The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, I'll let you get through this. And you'll come through this. And then you'll come to me to celebrate what I did on this day. Come to me. That's huge. That's huge. Imam Rajab rahimahullah says, I would like to say for the record that the authenticity of this statement is disputed. Imam al-Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said, it has come to our attention that the supplication is answered for surety on 5 nights. The night of Friday, the night of the 2 Eids, the beginning of Rajab, and the night of the 15th of Sha'ban. All of what has been narrated about these nights is praiseworthy. As for the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, there is no direct statement made by him about the night of the 15th of Sha'ban. So he's not stated anything either. He's not stated it should be done, it shouldn't be done. He's left it open. It's up to you what you do. It's up to you what you do. Why? Because the texts from either way, they equivocate. And Imam Ahmad would often do something known as tawaqquf. He's left it to you. Because there's different texts. It's like, I'll leave it to you. People would often ask him questions, well, what about this? What about that? I'll leave that for a later age, because right now to answer it, we have to wait for it to come to pass. I'll leave it to you. He just left it to them. There have been 2 statements from him about standing in the night, and also another 2 narrations about the night of the 2 Eids. There is a narration from him that it's not praiseworthy for people to stand in prayer in the night of the 2 Eids in congregation, as has not been narrated from the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. He did consider it praiseworthy in the narration due to an action of Abdul Rahman ibn Yazid ibn al-Aswad, who was from the followers of the companions. Likewise, standing in prayer on the night of the 15th of Sha'ban is neither established from the Prophet ﷺ nor the companions, but this practice was established by a group of the followers that represented the high-ranking people of the scholars of fiqh among the people of Sham. It is narrated from Ka'b ibn al-Ahbar, who said, indeed Allah the Exalted on the night of the 15th of Sha'ban sends out Jibreel alayhi salam to the paradise and orders him to beautify it. And he says after that, indeed Allah, exalted be He, has freed in this night slaves the number of the stars in the sky, the number of the days of creation and their nights, the number of the leaves of the trees, the weight of the mountains, the number of the camels. So if you want to think about the weight of the earth in terms of comparing that to the mountains, the earth weighs 6 sextillion tons. So if you subtract from that water, you subtract from that, you probably get a number, maybe 3 sextillion tons. Sa'id ibn Mansur, contemporary to Imam Ahmad, narrated. It was narrated to us by Abu Ma'ashar from Abu Hazim from Muhammad ibn Qais from Ata ibn Yasir, who said, there is no night after the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, more virtuous than the 15th of Sha'ban. Allah, blessed and exalted be He, comes down to the lowest sky and forgives all the slaves except the idol worshipper, the one addicted to intoxicants, and the one that cuts family relations. On that night, the number of people freed from the fire are many indeed, in huge number. As for the one who is rejected on this night, great indeed is the loss. Allah has increased your loss on this night. This is indeed a great loss for you if this should happen. I weep for myself, as indeed I have a right to weep. I can claim no ignorance and have no doubt about what I shall reap. If I was to say that in all of the time that I lived I am perfect, in those words I lie, and that is my defect. The days of Sha'ban and its 15th night have come. As the sign of piety has appeared, it's now time that I have sung. By my life and all truth have I wasted my life in desecration. Let me use this night so that the Lord of creation will save me from devastation. The believer on this night should busy himself in the remembrance of Allah, exalted be He, calling on Him, asking for forgiveness of sins, covering the faults, lifting the difficulties, and that over and above all that, repentance. Indeed, Allah, exalted be He, will have forgiveness on whoever repents to Him. Stand in prayer on the noble night of the 15th of Sha'ban. The honor of this month is well known, so worship if you can. How many a man has stood on the night to be safe and sound? The date when the pages are laid bare and the speech of the year's plans abound. Hasten to do good before the end of that time. Beware of dying in a state of loss, which on this night would be a crime. Fast in the day, Allah help you, and hope in Him, so that your troubles might be lifted and you feel joy again. It is specifically for a Muslim at that time to avoid sins that would hinder him from the forgiveness of sins and acceptance of his supplication on that night. It has already been narrated that the only people that will not be forgiven on that night will be the one possessing shirk, the one who committed suicide, those who commit fornication and adultery. These three sins are the most egregious of sins in the sight of Allah, just as has been mentioned in the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud on the authority of the text that is agreed upon. He asked the Prophet ﷺ, which sin is the most severe? He answered, that you make a rival for Allah and He created you. He was then asked by Ibn Mas'ud, then what? He was told that you kill your children out of fear that they will eat from your own food. After that he was asked, then what? Then he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, told him that you fornicate or commit adultery with the wife of your neighbor. Allah exalted be He then sent down as confirmation of that statement, and those who do not call on another God with Allah, nor slay a soul that Allah has declared sacred except by a valid right, and they do not commit adultery or fornication. Surah Al-Furqan, the 25th Surah, 68. Another one of the sins that hinders from forgiveness is the Muslim hating his own brother out of something that he desires for himself. This hinders from forgiveness most of the time, and this stops forgiveness and mercy. This has been mentioned in the Sahih collection of Imam Muslim, as narrated by Abu Hurairah, where the Prophet ﷺ said, the gates of the paradise are opened on Monday and Thursday, and every soul is forgiven that has not associated partners with Allah. The only one not forgiven would be the one that has some matter of hatred between him and his Muslim brother. When Allah sees that, He says to one of the angels, check his affair until these two reconcile. So it's that important, having hatred between Muslim brothers, other things, to resolve it. Cutting ties, these types of things. Try to resolve it as soon as possible. Because the longer you leave it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, check his affair until these two reconcile. Meaning, don't write him down as forgiven until it's sorted. Leave him be for now. So the pins are sort of waiting. The pins on your forgiveness are kind of, they've been licked and just they're standing waiting. Is it done? Is it not done? This hatred that hinders forgiveness was described by Imam al-Awza'i as something that is in the heart, like hatred for the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hatred is greater and more severe than the hate that would happen among equals. Imam al-Awza'i also mentioned this as every worker of innovation that divides the ummah. So the innovators, they have to be afraid that maybe they won't be forgiven. The people that reject what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, or they tamper with what Allah revealed. Ibn Thawban also said that the one hating the truth is every abandoner of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has gone against the ummah, spilling their blood. This is the hatred that I mean when I say that it is the innovation that causes a break in the collective of Muslims, their blood, wealth, and honor being declared permitted. This is like the innovation of the Khawarij, the Shia, and others. The best of actions are to have a heart clean from hatred in all its forms. And the best way to have a heart clean is to stay away from the hatred and rage present in the people of desires and innovation. So to stay away from that yourself, and stay away from the people involved in that. Because you'll notice that those people, there's always rage, they're always arguing, they're always battling with someone. Have you heard? No, I haven't heard. Then you find out there's like 10 videos they've made against someone. And have you heard? No. Then there's like 100 tweets, and there's like pages and pages and pages. And I often say when people send me this stuff, or they send me emails, I'm like, when are they sleeping? SubhanAllah, where are they sleeping? Do these people work? Are they just like live in a cave? Like, how are they surviving with that level of rage? And then they've got to put in the emojis, got you, and all these types of things, and the smoke mushroom clouds, or the fire emojis, or the guy with the sunglasses on. And it's like, what is the point in all of this? Because you don't even know. And then that person, imagine that person going to sleep that night. I showed him. I destroyed him. There were over 100,000 impressions. I got him. Then they go to sleep. Imagine the terror that happens after that. He wakes up in the morning, as is his sunnah, he checks his phone, finds out there's been 3 threads that have answered his one thread. 400,000 impressions, retweets. Oh no! Yeah, while you were asleep, they were awake. The people of Fitna. They got after you. Now they're ahead. Oh no, we're behind. We've got to get after them. Now they start again. Then he thinks, I've got him. Goes to sleep, wakes up, the whole terrible dance happens again. Imagine that being your life for years. But something more terrible, imagine you thinking that that's how Islam is and that's how learning is. That's a catastrophe. No one would learn like that. You can't. When the heart is clear from this form of hatred, one will not show hatred towards the main body of the Muslims. He will only want good for them, advise them sincerely, and he will love for them what he loves for himself. Because when you love the main body of the Muslims, that's the rank and file. Most of the ummah, they're not scholars. Most of the ummah aren't students of knowledge. Most of the ummah are rank and file people. If you have hatred for them, especially if you're a student, if you have hatred for them, what are you in this for? You teach Qur'an and everything else, but you can't stand the rank and file. I can't stand those regular people. You're teaching Qur'an. You're teaching fiqh. What are you doing this for? If you can't stand the regular people, could you imagine a mechanic saying, I can't stand my clientele? Why are you a mechanic? A doctor, I can't stand my patients. Why are you a doctor? You spent 8 years going through this? Why would you do this? The rank and file people are the rank and file people. And that's why the Rasulullah said that the indigent and the destitute among my ummah will enter the paradise 400 years before the wealthy. See these collections. So, what does a man who grew up in Durman in Sudan? He was a baker. He also has a couple head of cattle. He's married. He has his wife and children. Small house made from adobe. Put together enough money, about 10, 15 head of cattle, about 15 years back. Took his whole family on Hajj, came back, lived his life, owns a well. One day at 97 years old, he lays down, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, stay down. How much does he have to account for? Not much. His bread's from him, made his own bread, his own cheese, his own milk, put together 10 cattle, sold them at the market, went on Hajj. How much accounting does this man have? Maybe he yelled at his wife more than he should. The bread's not done, or maybe whatever. Maybe he was hard on his kids a little bit more. Maybe he worked the oxen an extra hour longer under the sun, maybe that. But he doesn't have near the amount of the amount of accounting that maybe some of us might have. Because some of us, we got houses all over the place. We got cars all over the place. This one's on lease. This one's not. I gave it to my brother, but then he said, let me hold it. And then now he says, it's mine. You actually gave it to me. No, I didn't. You owe me money. No, I don't. Wallahi, I don't. And you know he lied, but then he says, no, I didn't. You know I didn't lie. And all this, I know what's going on here. Then you try to go to your mom. Well, he is your older brother. But wait a minute, he stole. And then there's all these other issues that are happening. And then your dad's in the corner. Listen to your mothers. You have to listen to it. And then all this stuff happens. How much accounting do you have? I don't know. Because we have more things to think about. And the more stuff you have, the more you have to account for. That story I gave of the man of Durman in Sudan, he's very minimum stuff. If he's asked, what about this and what about that, he can tell you, I got from here, got from there. That's it. The more you have, the more you have to account for. The more wealth you have, the more you have to think about, wait a minute, what's the money doing now? Where is it? What's going to happen with that? Allah, the Exalted, has already described the believers and their main body when he said, O Lord, forgive us and our brothers who preceded us in Iman. Do not make our hearts to have hatred towards those who believe. Our Lord, indeed, you are the benevolent, the most compassionate. Surah Al-Hashr, the 59th Surah, ayah 9. There is a narration from the Musnad from Anas ibn Malik that the Prophet ﷺ said, in 3 days there will come to you a man from the people of paradise. Then a man came out, and Abdullah bin Amr decided to become his guest to find out why he was one of the people of paradise. So for 3 days he slept in his home to look at his deeds. However, while with him, Abdullah bin Amr did not see any large deeds. And after 3 days he informed him of this and asked why he would be special. The man remarked that he knew of nothing other than that, as long as he'd been alive, he made sure that there was no hatred in his heart towards any of the Muslims. Abdullah bin Amr then said, this is what has reached the level, this is the truth of the matter. In the Sunan of Ibn Majah, there is the narration from Abdullah bin Amr in which he said, it was said to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is the best of people? He said, everyone with a tranquil heart and a truthful tongue. The people remarked, we know about a truthful tongue, but what is the meaning of a tranquil heart? He answered them, it is the one who is pious, pure of heart, who there is no sin in the heart, nor evil intention towards another. This heart also bears no ill will or envy towards another. One of the early generations used to say, the best of deeds are pure hearts, humble selves, those who sincerely advise the ummah. Thus, with these descriptions, it can be seen that this is reached by what is in the hearts, and not by hard work expended in the actions of fasting and prayers. My brothers, avoid the sins which will hinder the slave from the forgiveness of the Lord who his name is the forgiver. He is the forgiver in all the ways of mercy, repentance, seeking forgiveness. As for shirk, it has been mentioned. Indeed, whoever associated partners with Allah, then Allah has made the paradise impermissible for him, and his home is the fire. The oppressors shall have no helpers. Surah Al-Ma'idah, 5th Surah, 72. As far as the topic of killing, then if the people of the skies and the earth had gathered together to kill one Muslim without right, Allah would have put all of them in the fire. When discussing fornication and adultery, then take warning in the strongest possible terms from the wrath of the most forceful one, Al-Jabbar. All of the creation are slaves of Allah and his handmaidens. So the men are the slaves of Allah, the ladies are the handmaiden slaves of Allah. Handmaiden is a female slave. See, the handmaidens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're all slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no one with more jealousy for his right than Allah, so that any handmaiden or slave violates this by fornication will surely provoke him. So due to this holiness and jealousy, he has forbidden all types of perversions and commanded that the slaves lower their eyes. As far as the hate that is in a slave towards his brother, this is evil, and the intention will be to harm his brother. Do not think that Allah is unmindful of what the oppressors do. He has only delayed them for a day in which their eyes will roll back in their heads in abject terror. Surah Ibrahim, the 14th Surah, Ayah 42. Is it not enough for you to know the reasons why forgiveness might be hindered at the times where it should most ardently be sought, and the forgiveness of sins is most assured? So then the Imam gives this poetry. Destroyed is the slave that lost his way from his Lord, all due to reasons stemming from his acts of disobedience. May mercy be upon the one whose heart is clean. There is no fear there on the day of accounting for all things seen. The thunder shall assuredly roll on that day, on the very day that the hair of children shall be gray. I have sins in abundance that need to be forgiven, a life of waste, so I should fear when I am risen. When I act, I do good deeds, but I don't know when I fear that I might have acted when my heart was not sincere. Ikrimah and other scholars of commentary mention the ayah in the words of Allah, the Exalted. And in the night, every matter is indeed settled by the Most Wise. Surah Al-Dukhan, the 44th Surah 4. They said in their commentaries that the reference to the night of the 15th of Sha'ban, the vast majority say that this is actually referring to Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, and that is the correct position. Ata ibn Yasar said, when the night of the 15th of Sha'ban has come, yarhamakallah, the angel of death has shown a page that was written on it instructions to take the soul of whoever is written down on it. It is also listed for the slave what will come to pass for sustenance, those who will marry, what will be built, the name of the place and time of death. It is at that point that the angel is just waiting for the command to go and take the soul. Let the one deceived by his long life and happy with his wicked deeds think and know that the death will come shortly to everyone, and he does not know when he will suddenly be grabbed. Everyone that is alive with his family thinks everything is in his grasp. but has no idea that death is closer than his own sandal strap. One of the early generations said, how many have risen to face a new day and didn't finish it? How many people planned for tomorrow but never made it? Had you been able to see the end and how, you would have been angry about the time lost and the deception that grabbed you. I run through life as if I will be forever. Day by day, I realize the hereafter is forever. I don't know if I will see another afternoon. Then I don't know if I will live to the morning when I see the afternoon. How many people have there been that exhausted themselves in seeking earthly riches, that went down into the grave having failed to fulfill their wishes? It is as if you passed all of your time and efforts and strain to obtain or reach something that would cause you great pain. Then comes the time of the washer to prepare you for your shroud, hastening you to your grave, no matter the voices raised or how loud. There is nothing to stop the carrying of the shroud and strips of cotton. Whether you are many or few, your appointment is not to be forgotten. Men before you passed away and went on, and you can see. You will follow in their footsteps, shortly, not long. Just wait and see. The carriers call one another to lift them and head to the graveside, carrying people like you to move on into the dark night. When they lower you into the dark grave, no safety for you, no safety or protection from the consequences of things you now do. Who will help you on the day you enter the presence of the most compassionate, the one benevolent to his slaves, decides the destination that is permanent? Death will come no matter how long the lifespan. You will be taken whether your life is short or long, no matter how much you plan. My brother, I advise you, so please listen to me. By Allah, you should seek his help to be in good stead for eternity. Don't you see the signs all around you that are present every day? The end will reach you and your friend, so prepare for the end of days. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك انه غفور رحيم ارحم الراحمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا ورسولنا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى اله واصحابه وسلم اجمعين ارحم الراحمين. O Allah, we ask that you bless us, you have mercy upon us, the author of this text, and those who are mentioned in the text, those who read from it, take notes from it, and take word from it. O Allah, we ask that you have mercy upon all of those who took heed from the text and who are present here today, and those who hear my voice who are not present. O Allah, we ask that you protect us from the punishment of the grave and the tribulation of the grave. O Allah, we ask that you protect us from the penalty on the day of resurrection that shall come and shall certainly find the oppressors. O Allah, we ask that you bless us and that you give us your shade on the day there is no shade but your shade. O Allah, we ask that you have mercy upon the Muslims wherever they may be in the difficulties that they're undergoing. O Allah, we ask you have mercy upon the believers, the righteous men and women of this Ummah, the Mujahideen, and those who strive in your cause and your cause alone. O Allah, we ask that you make us to be among those who reach the middle of Sha'ban, and we glorify in whatever ways we're able to the differences of opinion that have been mentioned, and that we also remember this up till Ramadan and glorify your name throughout. O Allah, we ask that you make us among those who don't waste this precious time and that we prepare for the month of Ramadan. O Allah, we ask that you make us among those who advise our family in the best way so that they might take heed. O Allah, we ask that you might make us among those who advise our friends so that they might take heed. And O Allah, we ask that we might be among those who take heed so that we seek your blessing on the day in which there is no blessing but your blessing. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa rasulina Muhammad ibn Abdillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam ajma'in hamid rahimeen. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك إنه غفور رحيم ارحم الراحمين ولا إله إلا الله برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.